Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum. You came along and everything started to hum. Still, it's a real good bet, the best is yet to come.
We are the Org. Our mission is to assimilate Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and beer. Lots of beer.
Hello, friend!
Hello!
Welcome to bOrgCast 7.5. We've got no obituaries this time, thankfully. God, that was getting a bit depressing.
Yeah.
Instead, we have a couple of birthdays to celebrate.
Yay!
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday.
Yeah, happy birthday to JJ
Hello! Happy birthday!
and Mr. Matt Dillon.
Hello! Happy birthday!
Both of whom have birthdays within days of each other. And both of whom, of course, hosts of Geek Planet Online's own Babylon project, which is nearing its end. So they're covering the mini-movie things. Never mind. I'm sure they had delightful birthdays despite that. All right. Shall we find out about tonight's Deep Space Nine episode, Invasive Procedures?
Let's.
A desperate outcast plots the ultimate theft.
Either you help me, or you and your friends will die.
The life force within Dax.
Come to steal my symbiont.
Now to save her shipmates.
I don't want anyone else hurt because of me.
Will she make the ultimate sacrifice?
Forgive me, put the symbiont back where it belongs.
I can't do that.
This woman is dying and I need your help to save her.
On the next episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Now, up until the very last shot, which, again, you won't see this because you're listening to it, but up until the last shot in that trailer, it was really good.
It was.
But the last shot, as you'll see if you go to YouTube and type in Invasive Procedures trailer, you'll discover is the ending of the episode, where Verard gets shot by Cisco.
Spoiler.
Yes. Stupid trailer, people.
Yes.
Any tension that had been built up, immediately eradicated. Cisco shoots the bad guy. Huzzah.
Oh, dear. Ridiculous. Anyway, you open with, there's been a temporary evacuation of DS9, apart from a skeleton crew, because of plasma storms. Which, well, the effects, it looks like a little bit of mist.
I quite liked a sort of purple cloud with lightning in the background. It's quite cool, I thought.
But the effect on the station just looks like a little bit of mist. It doesn't look particularly threatening.
All right. Okay.
I didn't think. Anyway, it's a little bit misty. It's that fine rain.
Deep Space Nine is surrounded by drizzle.
Yeah. So anyway, as part of all these procedures, they're shutting things down, and you've got Odo and O'Brien going around and checking the docking ring, and they find Quark, and he says that he's pining for Rom.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right. And I love that he says, well, he couldn't find a cup of water if you dropped him in a lake.
Yes.
Which I like as a line, but he claims he's still, his brother and everything.
He hit it.
I'm afraid I first came across that song as the punchline to a horrible racist joke.
Oh, no.
And I can't actually hear the song because that's the first time I came across it.
Right. Well, I first came across it as the punchline to a classic Judge Dredd strip.
Oh, right.
Which I must show you. It's one of the earliest ones and one of the really standout ones. But anyway.
Anyway, it just, for me, it just colours
oh dear, well, it would rather.
The song, unfortunately. Yeah, but you have this shot and you can see that Quark has put a flashy thing.
Yes, there's an ominous box of ominousness stuck to the wall.
Yes.
End teaser. This isn't too bad, I suppose, but yeah. You're right, I suppose. If they'd ramped up the effects outside so they looked a bit more threatening to the station, then that teaser would have been a lot more effective, but they didn't.
Yeah, no, they didn't, so it isn't. And to be fair, apart from a couple of people pressing buttons at consoles, you don't actually have any effects on the station, do you?
No, well, Kira makes the point that they're quite safe because Cardassian engineering is so solid that they're fine in there. So, But that's obviously not the nature of the... Well, yeah.
Doesn't work. Anyway, there's a ship in distress.
Yes. We might have got excited at this point.
Now it's time to get anal about spaceships.
Took a trip on a Gemini spacecraft. And I thought about you.
Normally, Memory Alpha has a list of every ship that's used in every episode. So you look at it's listed by season, so you go to the second season and see what ship this is. Nothing. It's there, you see it on the screen. It's not like that rubbishy Next Gen episode we did a couple of weeks ago where you never saw the ship. There is, you do get to see it, and I'll be putting the picture up on Tumblr. The best I can tell from staring at the screen until I almost went blind, which I've done before with spaceships, admittedly, was that it's the Janolan model from Relics, aka the transport ship from Star Trek 6.
Okay.
So it's a very small ship with a couple of warp nacelles, and that's what it looks like. But heaven knows, if anybody can confirm it, let me know, but that's my best guess.
But you do have a nice shot of this ship being tracted into the docking ring, which is good.
Deep Space Nine to the rescue, apparently.
Yep. And then you get Tim Russ as an awesome Klingon.
Oh, well, yes, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because so used to Tim Russ playing Tuvok, that this was prior to that, obviously, seeing him as a Klingon Takar, which is a crap Klingon name. That sounds like a Vulcan name.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Takar is no kind of Klingon name.
It just sounds like Qatar said by someone who gets their words mixed up.
And we will call him Qatar from now on.
Yep.
Of course, we recently saw Tim Russ in Next Generation in Starship Mine. He was one of the people trying to take over the ship. And as we mentioned there, he auditioned for the role of Geordi originally, so he's got a long-standing connection with Star Trek.
Yeah.
He's in Generations, Spaceballs, Die Hard 4, Hill Street Blues, and ER. Obviously, we best know him as one of the few good things about Voyager, Tuvok. Yeah. And this is obviously a very different performance to Tuvok. This is the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. I like his performance in this, though.
Yeah, he's a bit underused, that's the only thing.
Oh, yeah, but that's not his fault.
No, but he puts his all into it, but he's not quite in it enough, but there we are.
And you get to meet Mariel, who's got hair, who could be at the con on the Enterprise.
Okay, so yes, Mariel, who we find out later is...
Mariel. Sorry.
No.
No, that's a fail, is it?
Yes, that's a fail. Sorry.
Sorry.
It's not even. I can't even think of the name of the song.
Lucille.
Lucille, yeah. Not quite close enough.
It's very near.
No, miss. She's a native of Kefka 4, played by Megan Gallagher. It's a very uninspiring, bumpy forehead jobby, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
But the actress will return in a much better role in Little Green Men. In season 4. Don't say anything about that.
No, I was just going to say it's an awesome story.
It is, yes. She's also in Voyager, apparently. Yeah, she's got nice purple threads, it has to be said.
Yeah.
And later on we find out she's very handy with her fists.
Fanar.
Well, no, not like that. Particularly when it involves Kira, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, but you said handy with her fist and she works at a house of accommodation.
Well, that's the other thing we find out, isn't it? That effectively, she's, yes, a lady of negotiable affection. Is that the phrase? She's strong when it comes to fighting, but she's very weak when it comes to Varad, isn't she?
Yeah.
Sadly. It would be nice if they'd have made her male, actually, and maybe of it Varad female, or even be revolutionary and have them both male. And then wouldn't seem quite so, I don't know, cliched that here's this simpering... Well, I say she's not, a lot of the time she isn't simpering, it's just over him she is.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, please. Never mind. We also have Yeto, who's the other Klingon.
Yeto.
You turn into Bausch.
Yes, no, that's all my notes just call him Yeto.
He's played by Steve Rankin, who was the Romulan whom Worf refused to give a blood transfusion to in The Enemy.
You know, I'm not being funny, but this is just so boring. People need to know what other people have been in other things unless you recognise them, or unless it's like a key role rather than a Romulan who Worf happened to refuse to give a blood transfusion to. I mean, this is like, you get anal about spaceships, it's let's get anal about actors.
That sounds really dodgy. Funny enough, in a way that anal about spaceships doesn't. I do all this research, and you just throw it back at my face. Well, let us know, folks. Are you interested in that? For me, it fascinates me. These actors that keep coming up in different roles in the various types of Star Trek. But maybe it interests nobody else. So if
it's key, if it's a significant role where the character's memorable,
okay, we're going Thunderdome on this. We're opening it up. Okay,
yes.
So if you think this is a good thing, finding out about these actors who appear elsewhere, then let us know. But if you're in the Anne-Marie camp
of fine if it's a major character, but not if it's a something completely different, like Hill Street Blues or something we don't watch, or a minor character like the Romulan Who, as opposed to name significant episode, that sort of thing. So, for the sake of argument, supposing you turn around to me and said that person under that makeup played Admiral Nechayev, right? That's a named, memorable character. Fine. The Romulan, no.
Okay, we'll see what people say. I mean, people might be, maybe.
If they are, we have a jingle like we do with Aim About Spaceships, and I can just drink beer and ignore you.
Okay, that's the deal then. Okay. Oh, God, more work for me. Maybe if you're pro this idea, then perhaps you could give me an idea for a jingle as well. But I'm not doing anal about actors, I'm sorry. That's way too Soho for my liking. Have I covered them all? Well, we haven't covered Varad, of course, who's played by John Glover. Now, he is interesting, I think you'll find. Not only has he been in Frasier, who's a regular in Smallville, he's also in Scrooged, which you don't like, do you?
No.
I've just remembered, so you don't.
Yeah.
He's the villain in Gremlins 2.
Right.
He's in RoboCop 2, which we've not seen for ages because it's shit.
Yeah. You do realise you're not winning yet, don't you?
But and this might just be the final shot in the foot for me.
Uh-huh.
He was in Batman and Robin.
Oh.
The crazy scientist?
No,
who
because
infects...
it's a shit film that I watched once and thought, I'm never fucking watching that again. So no, I don't remember who anybody is, and I'm fucking grateful.
He's the one who creates Bane.
Right.
The awful Bane.
Like there's a good Bane now?
Yeah, well, I quite like, what's his face?
Someone who just talks into his throat glass.
Yes, it might sound very strange, but it's far, far better than the Bane in Batman and Robin.
Yeah,
Blimey.
well, anything's better than anything in Batman and Robin.
I'm going to shut up now.
Yeah, good. Can we get on with the story? I mean, how many fucking minutes have we just spent? 10? On this drivel?
That's most of our podcasts, darling.
Oh, most of it's interesting. I usually do the skip for this bit.
You skip your own podcast.
Yeah, this bit where you say all the things that people have been in before that I don't care about. Yeah. I usually skip anal about spaceships as well for the same reason, because I don't care.
But when you won't learn.
Oh, right. So tell me, please, how has my life been enriched by this 10 minutes of you telling me things I don't watch that these people have been in, looking very different because they haven't got the makeup on? How has my life been enriched by this? You tell me.
It's broadened your Trek horizons.
But half of the things you mentioned haven't even been fucking Trek. You talked about fucking Batman and Robin.
Yeah. Quality productions.
No.
Boo. Shall we move on?
Yes, I was ready to move on quite some time ago.
I'll just sob into my beer.
Listen, if other people like this, I know some other people like anal about spaceships, then fine, you have a jingle, I drink beer and ignore you, it will work.
Save me, Purry, save me.
I don't know, this would be interesting, because I know he likes anal about spaceships. I'm not sure, we can't call it anal about actors, we can call it about something else.
Yeah.
We need a name. If you like the idea of him having this segment while I drink beer, give it a name. If, on the other hand, you're like me and think this is needless
Casting
waffle...
couch or something like that.
No, that's far too boring and unsweary.
You know what the casting couch is, don't you? You don't know what... Never mind. That was a bit of smut that was lost on you, but never mind.
Okay.
Moving on.
Fair enough. Okay. Right, getting back to the plot. You know, the thing that's interesting? These guys appear and they've got this special box that they insist Odo gets in.
Is Odo in a box? Odo in a metal box.
Am I living in a box? Am I living in a cardboard box? Am I living in a box? Am I living in a cardboard
I'm sorry. How can that be closer to the
It's
original?
Odo in a box.
To how closer to the original lyrics than Mariel to Lucille. Mariel to Lucille changing 2 letters, all the rest sounds the same. Odo and living do not sound the same, and cardboard and metal do not sound the same, do they?
No.
So we've got to have the same rules here. I will allow you Odo in a metal box if you will allow me things like Mariel where you just go, no, it doesn't sound the same enough. So either I can apply your rule to you, no, it doesn't sound the same enough, or you have to accept that my principle applies. And therefore, you can have Odo in a box, but you can't veto.
So welcome to the latest episode of Peter and Anne-Marie Have a Domestic. It's going to be long nights.
Sorry. Can you tell it's the school holidays and I don't have an awful lot of patience?
Yeah.
Yes. So they have a box for the shapeshifter, and the last guy appears, and you can tell that he's a Trill, because he's got all spotty. Anyway, he says that he's come to steal the Dax symbiont, except he doesn't say steal, he says it's rightfully his. He talks about how he went before the Symbiosis Commission, they said he was unsuitable, and basically seems to describe it as crushing, whereas Jadzia's like, but her parents and her sister aren't joined, and he's like, no, I deserve this, and my notes then go, no you don't, you fetid jizz tissue.
A trifle harsh, but...
No, I deserve this, I should get this.
Because
no.
I'm worth it.
Oh, don't. It makes me think of my daughter and her hair with her flicky fringe she's now got. No, he isn't worth it, he clearly is unsuitable. He's just like, no.
Well, it's interesting because, and I don't know how much to reveal, but we find out an interesting thing about Trills and the Host later on, which actually makes him seem less of an arse. But I'm not going to say anything more because it's the basis of a later plot.
Yeah. But even so, though, I deserve this. No, you don't. And even if you thought you did... Okay, the very fact that you then think it's okay to nick a symbiont from somebody else shows the Symbiosis Commission was right.
I mean, ultimately, yes, this is clearly the ultimate entitlement thing, but yes, it's interesting.
I don't like him.
You're not supposed to be fair.
No, I know, but he's just such a wanker. He's like... It's not just that I don't like him. Right? He's a baddie I'm not supposed to, but you've got baddies that you can respect. Mm-hmm. And then you've got people like him.
Varad.
Yeah, you know, and there's no respect for him, is there?
Well, no, you're never going to respect him because of what he's contemplating. So.
It's not just because of what he's contemplating. He's just so, oh, I'm so sorry, and he's just a simpering, mithering.
Well, that's
twat.
interesting. He's played as quite weak before he's joined, and then after he's joined, then he's all strong and charismatic and very different.
Yeah, but
which kind of it doesn't obviously justify his actions, but it kind of proves the point that, you know, the fact that he didn't get joined did make a big impact in his life. He was clearly a much weaker character.
But that's why he didn't get joined, because you're supposed to bring something to the joining, aren't you?
Well, yes, to an extent.
And he brought nothing.
Well, that might be the real reason. But then again, probably, don't want to say any more. Let's move on.
Anyway, the point is, he's just...
You don't like him?
No. He is a minge pimple. So, and then after this whole I deserve this, I'm worth it thing, he shoots O'Brien. And then you have Cisco turning around and saying, this is no time to be a hero. And I just made me think of, we don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is what we
Which just makes me think the latest Mad Max trailer is up. Have you seen it?
No.
Ooh, looks good.
Oh, okay. And then you get this fight where Cisco takes down a Klingon. It's just awesome.
Yeah. I mean, initially, that comes a bit later on, because they basically order Bashir to take the symbiont out of Jadzia, and he initially doesn't want to go, and he's going to be the hero.
Yeah.
And he looks to Cisco, and Cisco gives him a nod, which I quite like. It's like, he knows full well that Cisco's much closer to Dax than he is. And so he looks to his commanding officer just to make sure he's okay with him doing it, despite the threat to O'Brien and stuff. So I like that. That's good. And then, Cisco uses an opportunity to wail on Takar in a big way, and you think, bloody hell, he's going to rip his arms off in a minute.
Yeah, it's awesome. The only thing that got me about that fight scene is I was disappointed that Kira didn't take down her opponent.
She gets prawned, doesn't she? Which is a bit of a sad. But Mariel clearly is quite a strong fighter, because she does take Kira down quite quickly, doesn't she?
Yeah,
and then manages to get a phaser drawn on Cisco, so it's like, whoa, she's a force to be reckoned with. So I like that side of a character. What I don't like is the fact she's all simpering over.
Yeah, I think that's probably why actually I objected to Kira going down so quickly. Is because in other respects she's very weak, and I would just expect Kira to best her, or at least Kira to put up more of a fight than she does. To be fair. And then you get the symbiont, which looks very different to the Next Generation symbiont.
Oh yes, we made that point, didn't we, back in the day? Yes.
And then it's going in the pocket thing.
Pouch, yes. They do sort of kangaroos, don't they?
Yeah, it's a Joey. With that operation, Varad is just like, no, I'm not having one of those delta wave inducer things. You know, I want to see the operation. I want to be conscious and all the rest of it. And you're just like, yeah, you just want to slap him. And then you cut to now, is it called Ops where they meet? It is called Ops. And in Ops, you've got Mariel explaining why she's loyal to Varad. She says that he was stationed at a Federation outpost and he used to visit the accommodation house.
Yes.
And she says, I used to help him relax. Fanar. So it's interesting that in this sort of whiter than white future with the Federation, they don't have any money, but somehow they have brothels. How does that work? I just find it all a bit odd, I think. It's one of those things that I struggle with getting my head around in terms of vision.
Yeah, I mean, okay, what they use as currency is a bit odd, but then again, you can say the same about the drinks they buy at Quark's. But the setup is that he's a Trill, so therefore they're part of the Federation, aren't they?
Yeah.
And he was based on this particular planet, Kafka or whatever it was, that she was a prostitute on, basically. So the planet he was based on wouldn't necessarily be part of the Federation, so it would be different.
Okay, so he would have had to have found money or something to substitute for money in the same way as the crew of Deep Space Nine do with
Quarks. Yes.
So we don't know what the solution is, but it's effectively been established already. There is one.
Yeah, and particularly the people behind Deep Space Nine just kept running up against this. The fact that it's actually very hard to envisage a society with no currency. It just doesn't really work. So it is a difficulty that you just have to live with. I'm afraid it's a rodent breed thing.
Yeah, I think the thing is that a society with no money that's insular and isolated might work, but a society with no money that
wants to interact with
other
cultures,
societies doesn't
work at all. But there we are.
And then Cisco explains about the personality change after joining, and Mariel's like, no, I was told you'd say things like this, and I know about this, and he's like, no, I know. And from our point of view, actually, as viewers but on Cisco's side, we can think to ourselves, well, yeah, actually we know he was friends with Curzon and he's met Jadzia, so actually there's an extent to which he knows what he's talking about more than most non-trills.
Yeah. And
then you cut to sickbay where Yetor is being horrid about Jadzia. Oh, she just let him hand it over. But the thing is, isn't it established later on that part of her job is to protect the life of the symbiote, and that's why she would have given up and given in, is because...
Yeah, well, the reason really is the fact that her crewmates are being threatened, so she's willing to sacrifice herself effectively for them.
But in a way as well, she's sacrificing Jadzia so that Dax can live on, whereas if she fought, both Jadzia and Dax might die.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she comes to after the operation, she says she feels alone and empty. And I think this is a good piece of acting from Terry Farrell.
Yeah, no, she does a good job in this story generally, yeah. And, she plays, in the same way as Varad does as well, the, before and after.
Yeah.
Very differently, so that when they haven't got the symbiont, they're very different to when they have, and that's quite good.
And then you have Varad Dax appearing in Ops, looking very proud and his little pigeon chest out.
Yeah, and the body language is all different. That's what I like about that. I mean, it's a very good performance, even if you don't like the character.
Oh no, the performance is good.
The performance is very good.
And Cisco plays on the fact that he is Varad Dax, and talks about you get some more Curzon stories.
Yes. I love this interaction.
It's
Avery
brilliant.
Brooks is just fantastic in this episode.
Yeah.
And you get this real sense of camaraderie between the two of them.
Yeah.
But then he just turns it all on a dime, doesn't he?
Yeah,
And
he
say,
does.
well, basically, if you really were Dax, you hand the symbiont back to Jadzia,
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be your friend anymore.
Only the way he says our friendship is over, he may as well have just gone,
Fuck you, asshole.
Yeah.
and it was just woo, really sort of. And then you get this awesome scene where Quark leaps on the top of Qatar.
Yes. Quark starts off really bad in this episode. I mean, obviously, he didn't know what they were intending. He thought it was something to do with some memory sticks or something they wanted. And that's why he circumvented the security system that would have recognised their weapons.
Yeah.
That box thing that was at the teaser. But what he does is he then throws himself on a Klingon, which is pretty impressive. And a bit later on as well, he provides the rescue for Odo as well, doesn't he? So he ultimately does quite well. Armin Shimon wasn't very happy with the fact that Quark seems to get off scot-free by the end of this episode, because obviously he'd let them on, so he's responsible even if he didn't know what they were going to do. But there is a sense in which he's kind of redeemed himself, because actually he's helped save the day, so I think that's all right.
Yeah, so he leaps on this Klingon, who smashes him against a railing, and then he starts wailing because his ear's been hurt.
Yeah.
So they take him to sick bay, and then I'll come back to that in a minute, because what happens in the meantime is you have this really awkward hug between Muriel and Varad.
Yeah.
And you can really see
their relationship now has been altered because of, he's now Varad Dax. And, former friendships, they make this point all the way through the series, that friendships change as a result of joining. Yeah. And it's unusual that Sisko is still friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly it's a different, the nature of the friendship has changed because it was the old man and now it's a young woman. But nevertheless, he's managed to sort of hold on to that friendship when most people don't. And clearly these two, it's not going to work out, is it?
And you get this utter I told you so look from Sisko.
Yeah.
So then Muriel takes Quark to sickbay, who's lying there sort of going, and Bashir's going, it's only superficial damage, and Quark's going, no it isn't. No, it isn't. So he's going, it's quite bad and this could be fatal or whatever. You get Yeto being told to be nurse again, and I love the interaction between him and Bashir. It's brilliant. And he's supposed to be gently doing this to Quark's ear, and he jabs it in, and he's like, Rah! Screaming. But it's an opportunity for Bashir to get a hypo spray and stick it in, Yeto, and it's a nice plan. And then they get out Odo, and I love Quark opening Odo's container, and he's, just the little actions with his hands.
Yeah,
he does.
That's really well acted,
really,
isn't it, by
really
Shimon?
Good. Back on Ops, you have Farad saying, I'm leaving now. And Sisko, I think what he actually says something like is, I'll be seeing you again. But it's effectively,
I'll be back.
Yes, Sisko is full Schwarzenegger in this episode, basically, isn't he? He's kick-ass.
So then he goes to go to this ship, but Odo's released the docking clamps, and you know it's Odo because there's a random equipment trolley there that it just doesn't seem to clock that. Why would there be one in an airlock, And in the meantime, Sisko's ended up on Pad C, which is where the runabout was, with a gun, and he's like, Russ, you're not going to shoot me. I'm Dax. We both know you're not going to shoot me, Benjamin. And then Sisko's like,
Barad. Don't call me Benjamin.
Faces his ass off.
Just awesome. And basically the reason that Sisko's been able to get to the pad is because he was able to get Muriel to see that Varad had changed and was going to leave her, was going to abandon her. So they've now reversed the operation, and the symbiont is back with Jadzia. And Varad says, that he can't remember any of it, and I'm so alone. And Muriel's like, no, you're not alone, I'm here. And then Jadzia's like, he'll always be with me.
Except he's never mentioned again. No. Unlike all the other hosts.
But he was a host for
how long? Yes, fair enough.
Very, very small amount of time.
Yeah.
So you can expect that maybe the connections fade over time. But even so, you would expect to mention.
Yes, you would.
Even if it's not of him, of the fact that at one point she was robbed of the symbiont from Jadzia's perspective.
Yeah, I don't think it's giving away too much to say. A bit later on, we'll have an episode where we see all the former hosts, and he's not included, very pointedly.
Which, I guess you can understand it. I just think that from Jadzia's point of view, having had the symbiont taken from her, wouldn't it come up?
You think?
Yeah, even if from Dax's point of view, the joining was only very brief.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Generally, apart from the whole issues it raises with a storm that just looks a bit like fine rain, and the whole issue of currency and whatnot with the Federation. Putting those two things aside, I think personally this is a really, really good episode.
Yep.
Very well acted, good and interesting.
Lots of action.
Yeah,
some kick-ass fight scenes.
Yeah, and just Cisco as Arnie.
Oh, Cisco is so strong in this. He gets really angry. And I just love the way he just turns. Say Avery Brooks just turns the emotions on it.
Yeah,
he goes from all friendly and pally 1 second to, I'm going to kick your ass. Yeah. It's brilliant. So, feedback-wise, we've heard from the Mark, and he says, Invasive Procedures, or the Doctor has mad skills. A severe plasma storm leads Deep Space Nine to be temporarily but completely evacuated, save the senior officers, of course, who remain on board. After the evacuation, an unjoined trio named Varad, the forever fucking awesome John Glover, apparently, and his small band of mercenaries gain access to the abandoned station and hold the officers hostage. Invasive Procedures is an engaging character story with some surprising depth. Okay, the convenient abandoning of Deep Space Nine is totally contrived, and the idea that Quark bypasses station security and wittingly allows these mercenaries to board the station purports to have dire consequences. You're through here, Kira promises at one point, but ultimately comes off awfully transparent. But the core of this episode is very strong, featuring some excellent characterizations. John Glover's portrayal of an inept, confidence-lacking Varad is brilliant. Equally brilliant is his change of personality once he steals the symbiont and joins with it, becoming an interesting blend of Varad and Dax.
Yeah, true, yeah.
Cisco's response to the joining is utterly fascinating to watch, as he attempts to reason with the friend he knows resides inside the new Varad. Yep.
Yeah.
A point I bring up that hasn't been mentioned is I thought Terry Farrell's performance in this episode was noteworthy.
Julian.
Oh, thank God. I thought I'd lost you.
The symbiont. It's gone.
Oh, everything went perfectly. The operation was a complete success.
I feel so alone.
I've got you stabilized. If only we could get the symbiont back in time.
I'm scared, Julian.
You're not gonna die. Do you hear me? I'm not gonna let you die.
I never felt so empty.
I really felt for her when she woke up and the symbiont was gone. I also thought Bashir comes off as much more polished in Season 2.
Actually, that's true, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he's slightly less arsey in this one.
Yeah. I mean, he's still sort of gawky and slightly awkward,
Yep.
but not inept.
Yeah, when he talks about having
Batten down the hatches and all the rest of
yeah,
it, yeah.
But I find that endearing, actually.
Yeah, but to me it's the same character as Season 1, but with the annoyingness removed.
Yes, they've turned him down a gear or two, I think. Also heard from Sampo.
And Sampo writes, Hello! My feedback for Invasive Procedures will be a bit short, since the birth of my third son has somewhat limited the time I have for writing feedback.
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Whee! Excellent news.
And Sampo writes, On the whole, I wasn't a big fan of this episode. There were good bits, but there are several things that bothered me somewhat. First of all, I find it very strange that the skeleton crew of DS9 consists of only the senior staff, brackets and conveniently the main cast.
This is true. You'd expect a few non-officer bods to be around as well, wouldn't you? Yes, it is odd that it's just
at the very least
staff.
An engineering crew.
Exactly, 3 or 4 engineers or
some security staff.
Well, that would have come in handy, wouldn't it? But ultimately, it has to be this way, doesn't it?
Yeah. Second, what would have been Varad's plan if there hadn't been a storm? I know it's a bit irrelevant, but it still bothered me.
Yeah, it's interesting because he targets Jadzia because she's next to the wormhole, so that makes sense. But yeah, the fact that there's a storm now obviously gives him was that part of his thinking as well? Hard to say, isn't it, really?
I suppose he would have sent out a distress call with a different reason.
Yes, he'd probably said his walk call was overloading or something like that.
Yeah. Thirdly, the resolution seemed too easy. Bashir tricked the Klingon too easily, and Maria was too quick to turn on Varad. I don't think Bashir tricked the Klingon too easy, because actually it was Quark combined with Bashir.
It took the two of them working together, and plus Yeto is an idiot.
Yes.
So it doesn't take much of the stretch of imagination they could pull the wool over his eyes. And I don't know, because she's quite slow to come over to Sisko's way of thinking, isn't she? It's only really when
when he's clearly
Whereas
rejected her because
given
he's
the cold shoulder, yeah.
Well, it's not just the cold shoulder, it's when he's changed from, I'll go first and wait for you, which is their original plan, to you go and wait for me, and she knows she's going to be abandoned.
It's a combination of that and the body language changing, and it's clearly
yeah.
not the same man, isn't it?
Yeah. But to be fair, I can understand how, given that she starts off saying, no, I'll never betray him, and then she does, I can understand how someone else might find that difficult.
Too much of a job.
Yeah.
But you've only got 40 minutes is the bottom line.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Sambo says, and finally, there seems to be no follow-up on Quark screwing the whole station. I know he helped them regain control, but especially since Kira was basically saying, you've gone too far this time, it felt strange there wasn't a follow-up.
Yeah,
and that's what Armin Shimmerman said,
exactly
wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, there probably should have been some, not as serious as a result of him slightly redeeming himself, but nevertheless there should have been some follow-up.
There should have been, yeah.
And who knows, maybe he was fined or something, I don't know.
Yeah. He doesn't any longer have 600 bars of gold press latinum, he has 6.
Yeah.
I don't know. But Sambo says, it wasn't all bad. I liked the acting of both Farad and Farad Dax, and especially the contrast between the two roles. Also, Cisco interacting with Farad Dax was very good. I also enjoyed getting more insight into Trill culture, but otherwise the episode didn't hold my interest very much. Until next time.
Ooh.
Well, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it as much as we did, but, I mean, basically your points are valid. It's just that for us, they were really minor. Really minor, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's find out what Purry made of this one.
Hello, Orgs. Purry here to talk about Invasive Procedures. Now, I do remember this one from way back. I remember this was suddenly Cisco getting a hell of a lot punchier for starters. He really lays into Tim Russ the Klingon in this one. Tim Russ makes a fairly decent Klingon as well. I quite like this. It's a nice idea to have the station just about abandoned. I mean, it sounds a bit weird. They got everyone but Quark off? Or are there like shelters or that sort of thing, or sort of more armoured places in the station where they're sort of keeping a lot of the population? I don't know, but the deserted station was actually quite nice, but it wasn't played for Erie. It was just as a good guy. It was basically a contrivance to have the sort of storm as a way to get the station staff basically taken over by a bunch of 4 people without everyone looking like idiots. And yes, it works quite well. Interestingly, now it was a while ago when I watched this, believe it or not, but I was wondering, does Quark ever admit that? Because I got kind of the impression from this that Quark he wasn't there, he wasn't signing up for nicking Dax's symbiote, and he was quite shocked when he found out that. I got the impression that he thought he was just doing some sort of illicit under-the-counter deal. He had a box of like vials of liquid or something. And that was just an interesting, because for a while it really did look like, God, Quark, I know he's meant to be a bit iffy, but too far. What I did like, however, was, I thought the episode in general was quite a good idea, that someone thought they deserved a symbiote and didn't get it, and they wanted Dax's. And yet the guy actually, the Trill who plays it, he plays it really well. I know they take off his shirt as kind of a sign that he's more confident, but he really does carry himself very differently when he's got the Dax symbiote in, and it's really well done. You do get this idea that, this guy has been significantly changed, and it is interesting to see. We never saw Jadzia before her symbiote, so it is interesting to see how someone is once the big personality change that comes, and it possibly does open some questions of, does Jadzia really exist anymore? And it is that thing of, no, there is now Jadzia Dax, who's a separate entity from Jadzia, in the same way that Dax itself is a separate entity from Curzon Dax. So yeah, it's a lot of interesting stuff, and just in general, the episode keeps moving at a good pace. You do have like the crew sort of cooped up in ops for the most part, but plotting escape and that sort of thing. There was one bit which had me shouting at the telly though, and that was at the end. I really loved the interaction between Cisco and the new Trill, I can't remember his name. I loved their sort of interactions and his thing of trying to appeal to Curzon's better nature, but obviously the fact that it is a sort of hybrid creature is different, and I thought just at the end when the Trill says, you won't shoot me, it could still harm the transition, and you're not going to do that, I know you too well, Ben, and he walks past him, and then Cisco shoots him. I had a thought, couldn't Cisco just punch him in the head? because he said, yeah, shooting him with a phaser and stun might damage the Trill and cause all sorts of harm and risk Dax's life, but he said nothing about getting beaten around the head fairly regularly. And so I thought that was kind of a bit interesting, that I suppose, they did want to have the powerful scene of you don't know me well at all, but I just quite like the idea of, you won't shoot me, Ben. Walk up to him, Ben goes, no, you're right, but I will, however, kick you in the nuts. So yeah, overall, considering we've had the big political outflow, I had comments about this before in Deep Space Nine and other places, that Deep Space Nine always felt it was okay to do a standalone straight after doing your sort of big hitter. So you had the big hit of the Circle trilogy, and there's political fallout potentially from that, and lots of stuff going on there. And so they've decided, no, we'll take it down a notch, and we'll do this kind of bottle episode. Now, it is also budgetary. I mean, that episode had very few extras. No extra cast, not much in the way of special effects. So, yes, it was an episode done on the cheap, but it is quite nice to have a little break. Just when you do have this sort of big, some big story events happening, it is good to have a little break for all that it was a very good quality episode. And everyone gets a chance to shine. I mean, about the only thing is, I thought Kira shouldn't have lost her fight, but that's nitpicking now. So yeah, good episode, and definitely we're getting into a good start in Deep Space Nine Season 2. So anyway, I will be back shortly to talk about the Next Generation episode, whose title I forget. Until then, bye for now.
Bye! Kira losing just feels bad, doesn't it? Yeah. Although, to be fair, she does do a pretty good job against Tim Russ later on. Though, interestingly, Tim Russ accidentally punched Pat Tallman.
Really?
Who was Kira's double for this episode, in the face.
Oh.
And apologised profusely, said, oh no, keep it, because it looks really effective. But unfortunately they never did, because you never see her getting punched in the face in this story, so it's a shame, really.
Yeah. In terms of why Quark's there's an in-episode reason, although, to be fair, it is pretty tenuous, which is that there was room for him on a transport, but not all his latinum. Yes, you're right, Quark didn't think he was letting terrorists on to nick the symbiont. He thought that Yeto was buying data chains, and so he is bad, but he's not as bad as he might seem.
I like the idea of couldn't Sisko just kick him in the nads?
Yeah, I know, I like that. And in fact, at the time, I thought, you mentioned first of all punching in the head, and at the time, just before he did actually shoot him, I thought, well, punch him in the head then. The thought occurred to me, but then he shot him, and I was like, oh, fair enough then.
Yeah, but he was also armed with a phaser, so if he'd gone to punch him, he would have shot him, so he had to shoot him for that reason.
But then he could have kicked him in the nads, though, because he wouldn't necessarily be expecting that.
You'd have to be very quick at it.
Everybody was kung fu fighting.
Excellent. Oh, well, glad you enjoyed it as much as we did. Let's find out from the globe-trotting Drew and Tracy, who've just recently returned from the States.
Hello guys, this is our feedback for Deep Space Nine episode Invasive Procedures. And what do you think of that one then?
Yeah, I didn't mind it actually. It's not as good as the last 3 episodes, but it's not rubbish or anything. It's okay.
Yeah,
it's just average episode.
I thought this was quite an interesting episode actually. My first instinct within the first 5 minutes was, "Ooh, Quark, you snidey little git," and I thought that was quite an interesting play on him. Yeah, because obviously, carrying on from the last couple of episodes, Deep Space Nine has been evacuated, isn't it? So you've got a limited crew on board. Obviously, Quark hasn't got his bar running on the boardwalk and stuff like that. So they had to kind of make some excitement going on. And I thought it was quite well written, this episode. I liked it. It was really good to see Tim Russ, a.k.a. Tuvok, from Voyager, playing a Klingon here. It's really kind of fascinated me because he's played both ends of like the character spectrum, if you like, because he's gone from like a Klingon who is a really like aggressive,
emotional
character who to a Vulcan who is very passive and calm and logical, and I think that just shows the diversity of this actor.
That's a good point.
Very good, well done, Tim. So I was calling him Borad throughout, but he's actually Vorad the Trill.
Vorad.
Varad,
yeah.
God knows. What a little slimy bastard.
Yeah.
Absolute comes in. To be fair, though, if you're going to act like a terrorist, right, that is the way to do it. You just come on board, bash them in the face, nick all their comms, nick all their phasers. That's it, you're in charge. But what a slimy bastard. Oh, you just instantly have no kind of compassion for him at all. You can understand why he's doing it, because he wants to kind of join. He wants to be involved in the joining and stuff like that. But piss off and find another Trill.
Yeah, and the thing I liked about that guy is he's got the Clark Kent... Vorad, yeah. He's got the Clark Kent thing going on, isn't he? He's like, when he's Clark Kent, he's got the Dumb and Dumber hair. Yeah. As soon as he's got the Dax inbent into him, he's got a bit of gel in his hair, and he's all looking good and looking smart.
Absolutely. And when he was...
It's a well-trusted thing to show two characters, isn't
and although he was being very... I'm the terrorist and this is what I've got to do. He was very apologetic, wasn't he? Oh, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, when he was Clark Kent.
When he come out after he had the symbiont implanted, he was like, "Up yours! This is what I'm doing. Bollocks to you lot."
In Doctors of the Future, Bashir, is it just me, or does it just involve holding some scanning thing over the wound? Because first of all, he has O'Brien, and he holds it over about 3 seconds, goes, there we go, and then gives it to Kira. I'll keep applying this. And then he gives it to the Klingon guy, and he says, I do it over Dax's wound in the stomach. And then he gives it to the Klingon guy again for Quark's ear. Although, to be fair, that might have been a bit of a ruse. But anyway, is that what doctors do nowadays? You just go to the doctor and go, oh, doctor, I've got, this bum ache. And he goes, oh, let me just put this scanner on your bum for 5 minutes, and there we go, you're sorted.
I completely agree with your point, because if you went to a doctor's and they said, oh yeah, there's someone sitting over there and I'm going to get him to rub this ointment on your bum ache for like 20 minutes, you'd be like, that's a fucking malpractice, love. You're not qualified. So that did make me laugh. But at the same vein and in the same point, I was thinking, what is going on? Why is Dax have in all this like luxurious hair in surgery? Any normal surgery, she'd have like a shower cap on, she'd have all that yellow, orange iodine over her belly. But she looks gorgeous, doesn't she?
Surgery of the future.
Come on now. I tried to find quite a lot of funnies in this episode, but there wasn't many, to be fair. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was quite a nice episode. I can't remember what the actor's name is.
Yeah, nice and average.
Yeah, I can't remember what the actor's name is who plays Vorad, but he's the guy from Gremlins 2. He's just... character after character, same slimy,
I think
bit of a git.
It's a pleasant episode, nothing special, but it's enjoyable.
Yeah, but I enjoyed it. But again, it's another episode where Sisko is a little bit, showing a lot of compassion for his crew. We did say that during the thing, didn't we? We said like, yeah, here he goes, and I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Yeah,
let's have the next one.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Ah, ha, 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 the guy from Gremlins 2. It's not just me that does it, you see.
Fine, they can come up with a name.
I think I might be winning this competition. Oh yeah, tonight is your night. Tonight. Oh God, that's from Twins. Who goes to the doctors about bum ache? For heaven's sake! I wouldn't dare show my face to the doctors if I had bum ache. Doctor, I've got a crack in my ass. I hadn't noticed, but probably you're right, and I'll go back and if next time I watch it, look out for it. But apparently joining does improve your do, so,
Yeah.
Forget going to the hairdresser, just get joined.
Okay.
Piss off and find another Trill. Sisko should have said that.
Yeah. I mean, you're right about Tim Russ.
Oh yeah, both ends of the spectrum, definitely. Yep. Yes, that's very impressive, isn't it? Yeah, he's a great actor.
Yeah. Well, if they are interested in the fact that this guy was in Gremlins 2, then they can come up with a name, can't they?
Uh-huh.
And I'll just drink beer and ignore you, and that's fine.
To you. Okay, that leaves Mr. Wayne. Let's find out what he made of it.
Hello, Orgs. Wayne here to talk about this week's DS9 episode, Invasive Procedures. I had a bit of a crazy deadline on this week, so I had this on to one side whilst I was working, so I only really had one eye on it. But it was quite interesting. So we have the station is evacuated for the second week in a row, if I remember rightly, leaving only key personnel and the barkeep for some reason. I don't know if that's explained, maybe I missed that, why Quark is still on board. Anyway, more about him in a minute. We learned a little bit about the Trill. We learned quite a lot about the Trill, really. And that not all Trill are joined. And it was interesting the way that Jadzia talked about that. The way she described non-joined Trill as having full and productive lives almost sounded like an apologetic platitude, really. As if it's something that is often said to unjoined Trill to try and make them feel a bit better. the way she described it, it came across as sounding as if unjoined Trill are considered disabled in some way. I don't know if that was intentional, but that certainly put an interesting slant on the whole Trill thing. The symbiont itself is rubbish. It looks like a giant poo. I would have preferred something a lot more designed and something that looked much more like an alien life form than just this kind of shapeless, anemic poo. It's a real shame. I guess the elephant in the room, though, is Quark. I mean, as Kira said, he really crossed the line in this episode. Too far, I think. At the end of this episode, he really should have been prosecuted and thrown off the station. I mean, that was a serious breach of security. He almost got Jadzia killed, and possibly one or two of the others as well. And okay, he helped save the day at the end, but it's not enough. I think the writers should have been more cognizant of that, really. What he did was too much. He's supposed to be this sort of fairly inept comedy criminal character, but it just felt like that was too far. And of course, it wasn't resolved at the end, and it'll all be completely forgotten next week, which is a shame. But there you go. So all in all, I mean, it felt like a filler episode, but it was interesting from the point of view of learning more about the Trill as a species. Okay, so I'm not sure if you're doing this one first or second, so I'll either be back in a little bit to talk about Next Generation's Phantasms, or we may have already talked about that, in which case I will talk to you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.
He'll be back. Symbiont is a giant poo.
A giant poo.
I suppose he does look a bit like one, but blimey, that's a big one, isn't it?
Oh, that would give you bum ache.
It would, wouldn't it? Yes, you'd be going to the doctor about that.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. We have the station evacuated again, although for very different reasons. Obviously, that was because they were about to be invaded previously. But it's
now it's the fine rain.
Now it's the fine rain that's done it. But it's interesting that Quark remains both times, doesn't he?
Yeah.
This time, not because his brother has sold off his tickets, though.
No. The idea that unjoined Trill are disabled, I didn't get that impression because Jadzia says that her parents and her sister weren't joined. I know they say 1 in 10, which is a quite high ratio, but I'd thought of it as actually a bit like ordination.
Oh, blimey.
That not everybody who goes for... It's always an acronym and it varies. Whatever the acronym of the year is, goes forward, is going to be chosen to be ordained.
It's only those of us who are mad enough, yeah.
Pliable enough, perhaps. I don't know, but there's a system. There are criteria that are applied, and some people are rejected. And yeah, some people get through who shouldn't, which is what the references you were making to. But equally, some people are turned down who really should be. And that's. But maybe I've got that parallel because I've read that book. The Dax book.
Yes, there is a book that's about all the different symbionts, isn't there? That was quite good for a spin-off novel.
Yeah, and it may be that's where I've picked this idea up. Why I've drawn that parallel, because it's gone in more depth.
But we will find now. But that'll get rather overturned later on. But I'm not going to say anything more about it than that. Spoilers.
Okay, fair enough. Anyway. That was. Do you?
We managed to get through this without Section 31, so we don't need to go into that.
No, but do you feel that that's a fair parallel as an ordained person being a joined Trill, or do you think I've got it totally arse about face?
Well, there are interesting implications because of what we find out later on, but I'm saying nothing more.
Oh, okay. So we might come back to this discussion.
We will come back to this discussion. I can't remember how many seasons' time, but we will come back to this discussion.
Fair enough.
Let's go and do some Next Generation now.
Yes. Okay. Now, what is it? You've got to tell me. What is it?
Phantasms.
Oh. Troy cake.
Troy cake! Troy cake.
Peachy.
Dreams can be the playground of the imagination.
No! Data!
Where nightmares are normal. No! Even for an android.
Who are you? I do not know.
But sometimes the mysteries of the mind...
I recommend full psychoanalysis.
...may hold the secrets of survival.
Her tissue is breaking down on the cellular level.
Initiating dream program.
On the next episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
So that trailer wasn't too bad.
Not compared to the last one.
No, indeed. The episode opens with us watching Data walking along corridors through a fisheye lens, which immediately makes us think of the similar effect they used in Birthright Part 1, where the android was dreaming.
Yep.
And in this episode was written basically as a sequel to that. Except this time, of course, Data is having nightmares rather than normal dreams. He sees Geordi and they talk about some engine modification they need to do. The telephone rings and Data sees workmen dressed in 19th century miner gear dismantling a warp plasma conduit. He tells them to stop, then emits a high-pitched whistle. They tell him to keep quiet and rip off his arm. Then they pounce on him and rip his head off.
That's quite startling, the head coming off.
And this is the same head prop they used in Time's Arrow.
I did think it would be.
The miner that speaks, do you recognise him?
No.
Okay, this is Lou fracking Welsh from Babylon 5.
Really?
Yes, David Crowley. Yes.
Gosh.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite Babylon 5 characters. Data awakens from his nightmare and we see that he sleeps in his uniform.
And with his shoes on?
Yeah, a bit later on he gets into bed and he's clearly got his shoes on as well. It's all very odd.
Really odd.
I suppose you could argue he's an android and therefore you wouldn't expect him to have jammies. I don't know, it's all very odd.
But surely he would have created them especially for his dream programme. With ravens on or something.
I don't know. So that's our teaser, which is a trifle odd, but then again, that sums the episode up anyway.
Yeah, it does really.
The episode proper opens with the Enterprise leaving one of the beautiful mushroom star bases.
Oh, it's a lovely shot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's a reuse of a shot from 110, 1111, etc. from season 1 or not, but it's very nice. Apparently, a new warp core has been installed. Picard gets a message from Starfleet Command. Apparently, he's been invited to the annual Admiral's Banquet, which is not something he's looking forward to, and he's used up his excuses over the past 6 years to avoid it. No wonder he doesn't want to go. We've already seen that most of them are arseholes, so... In engineering, Data flaps about his first nightmare to Geordi, who's being pissed off by an attractive young ensign who is showering him with praise. Who are you? And what have you done with the real Geordi LaForge? You should be jumping on at the first opportunity.
Or at the very least being sympathetic and wearing one of his awful fucking jumpers. Or loaning them to her.
This is Ensign Tyler, who's played by somebody called Gina Rivera, who was also in the Fresh Prince of Bel-End. And she also has the singular honour of being in Showgirls. Not a film we've seen, thankfully.
So, she's been in a TV series that's not sci-fi and a film that's not sci-fi.
A notorious film, that's why it's worth mentioning.
Oh, okay. We haven't seen it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm quite happy to watch Showgirls. Well, it's only a matter of time before Black Dog covers it, let's face it. Yeah. Data points out how weird this is that Geordie's turning down affections.
Yep.
But apparently the engineer is uncomfortable with the crush she has on him. Yeah, right. Data offers to intervene on his behalf, but his friend stops him. They bring the new core online. It has a shiny new cover, which is kind of green, but generally looks much the same. Be interesting to see if that green bit's still there in future episodes.
Yeah.
On the bridge, and now it's time for Who's at the
Gate?
Yes, and she finally gets her name as well. Hurrah! Picard orders her to go to warp, but nothing happens.
No.
It's broken. Annoyingly, because she hasn't got a speaking part, Gates can't tell her about it, so instead Geordi has to hail and say there's something out of alignment. He fixes it and they try again. This time there's a massive power cut, which is quite a dramatic external shot of all the lights going out. Yeah. Power is restored when Data takes the engines offline, and Geordi says it required another couple of hours to fix. Meanwhile, Data is staring at Spot in his quarters, who looks very cute.
Yeah.
Troy visits, and Data says he's been watching the pet sleep. Geordi has got Troy to visit because he's worried about the effect of the nightmare. The counsellor tells him not to be afraid.
Do not be afraid.
Oh no, we're not having that. Awful praise song. How do you avoid being afraid of nightmares? Isn't that kind of the point of nightmares, that they make you afraid?
Well, what should happen is that you're scared in the nightmare, but when you wake up, you realise it was a nightmare and then you're not scared anymore.
Actually, no, because quite often my nightmares just continue. I still freaked out with them when I've woken up as well.
But that's what Geordi says, is that sometimes with some nightmares it can take a couple of days to shake. But normal nightmares, as in if there's nothing wrong with you, normal nightmares, it shouldn't be too difficult to stop thinking about them, because it should be obvious they're not real.
I'm probably eating too much cheese, aren't I? Anyway, there's no such thing as too much cheese. Troy reassures the android and he goes to sleep, in his uniform, including his shoes, with a stupid, pointless yawn to boot as well. I mean, what that's about, I do not know. Data in his nightmare is in 10 forward. with some very freaky music, actually. The music in this episode is very good. Worf is tucking into cellular peptide cake with mid-frosting.
Yum, yum.
As the phone noise goes again, although quite how anybody recognises this as a phone when they don't have phones in the 24th century and haven't had for hundreds of years.
Well, Picard would, because he has the holodeck adventure with
that's
Dixon
true.
Hill.
That's it, so you might have recognised it from that, you're right.
So I'm not saying everybody would, but
Yeah.
it's logical that Picard would.
Crusher is sucking off Riker. Well, I couldn't resist that line, I'm sorry. Actually, she's got a big straw in his head. And
She's giving him head.
She's sucking his head. And it's all pink. I'm not making this up, it's all there. Honest.
Oh, is that an episode title?
I don't know. I don't think iTunes will let us get away with Crusher sucking off Riker, sadly.
I'll try it.
Riker tells Data to answer the phone that's ringing. The android spots the miners again and makes the squeeing noise. And it's revealed they were gathered around a cake that is Troy. Dun, dun, dun. Now, this cake scene is a bit notorious because apparently it caused all sorts of problems. They struggled to get something that didn't look cack as opposed to cake. It was very uncomfortable for Marina Sirtis because you can quite clearly see she's kind of at a weird angle because her head's sticking out of the desk. Oh, it's all right. But at certain angles, you can quite clearly see how they're achieving it.
It reminds me a bit of The Curious Orange.
Oh, wow. Yes, that takes us back to the 1990s. Blimey.
Sorry.
Anyway, Troy begs Data not to hurt her, but he cuts into a sexy frosting. Troy cake. Yum, yum, yum. It could only be improved by being Troy pie. Troy pie. Anyway, Data is woken up by Troy, Geordi and Worf. Despite his internal chronometer, he's managed to oversleep. Geordi can't find anything wrong and suggests that oversleeping might be built into his dream programming.
That's not actually a bad assumption to
Yeah,
make.
no, it's quite good, isn't it? Yeah, it's quite natural, isn't it? Geordi asks what Data was dreaming about, but the android is reluctant due to the strangeness of the dream.
Yeah, it's not as strange as some of mine.
You are quite, yes. He goes to see Dr. Freud in the holodeck. Yes, this is a very annoying scene.
Well, not only that, but Freud has largely been discredited in psychology, so...
Yes, I don't know if he was in the 90s or not, but anyway.
Probably not, but it's something that
Dates
jars
it,
now.
therefore, yes.
Yeah.
He pointedly asks for details about the length of the knife the android used to cut up Troy. Oh, yeah. Then the doc puts it down to the android's mechanistic tendencies trying to rebel against his growing human traits. Hence all the dismantling going on. And then, surprise, surprise, he claims Data eating Troy equals him wanting to possess his own mother. Data points out he doesn't have a mother. Well, he doesn't know about it, but he's about to discover one in a few episodes' time.
Really?
Yes.
It's not that mad bint from Crystalline Entity, is it?
No, we've had the crystalline entity stuff. This is somebody else.
Okay.
When Data says he doesn't have any sexual desire...
Oh, he was fully functional for Tasha Yar.
Yes, but apparently no desire for it. Go figure. The doc diagnoses impotence. Correct. The android realises what a great choice he's made in getting Freud to help him and turns the program off. It's a very annoying padding scene, which is presumably supposed to be funny, but it's just fucking irritating.
No.
Meanwhile, Admiral Nakamura returns from Season 2's Measure of a Man. Blimey. They still had his address in their little book. Asks where Picard has got to. Suggests the problems of the warp core might be the captain's latest excuse. This Nakamura will return right at the end, by the way, in All Good Things. Geordi signals they're ready to test the core again, but the warp field collapses, taking the impulse engines out too. Picard tells Worf to hail the Admiral to explain that he's going to be late. Why can't he take a shuttlecraft? They've got warp capability. He's done it in the past, where he's got to be at a conference. Perhaps he's worried he's going to get kidnapped by Romulans, but, which is what usually happens. Geordi hands Data a brace coil, which just basically looks like a dagger, and reminds him of the knife from his dream. And then, in a really good effect, he sees a mouth opening at the back of Geordie's neck.
That is good.
It's presumably CGI and very effective.
But what does it look like on the original DVD?
Exactly the same.
It does look
Yeah,
good.
they
It's
haven't altered
not
the
something
effects.
they've...
No.
Okay, because I did wonder if they ramped it up for the... improved it for the blue. Okay.
The telephone rings, and Riker, with his head straw in place, tells the Data to answer it, which the android does by opening a hatch in his dummy. Cue android phone gag, which has been all over Tumblr for many years. And then we hear Freud's voice down the phone telling Data to
wipe them out. All of them.
We cut to Geordie asking what's wrong. Data is holding the brace as though it were the phone. The android is seeing Troy in her counselling room, explaining how he's now experiencing the dream in his awakening state, which is obviously more worrying. Counsellor feels he's becoming neurotic, which the android gets excited about. So he suggests weekly counselling sessions and for him to shut down his dream program.
And then says, see me before you see Sigmund.
Good advice.
Yep. Her hair is terrible. It's mahoosy. It's a hair mountain.
Yeah, you were complaining about it in Gambit, but it's much the same here, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Nakamura is on the blower again to Picard, suggesting they bring out a tow ship to bring them in, which clearly riles the captain. So he goes down to engineering to help Geordie. Help, inverted commas. Again, if you're that fussed, take a shuttlecraft.
Yep.
Or even your yacht, which we don't get to see until Insurrection. Ensign Tyler manages to get the captain from under Geordie's feet by suggesting he help shift some antimatter pods, which is kind of sweet, and Geordie's very grateful.
Yeah, but isn't she putting the captain in peril?
Possibly, yeah. Health and safety.
Health and safety, yeah.
But because, yes, I'm glad to help. Then Geordie turns around to speak to Data, but finds the android is gone. Cue very creepy music as Troy walks down a corridor feeling like she's being followed. She is.
Yep.
By Data, who stabs her with a brace. Yeah, it's all very psycho at this point. It's quite strong stuff as well. Apparently, the BBC edited some of this when they originally showed it. Surprise, surprise, wimps that they are. Riker, meanwhile, is talking to Worf.
Ever since you gave Alexander that music program, he's been playing it all night. Every night.
Just wanted to broaden his horizons. Besides, he likes it.
It is screeching, pounding dissonance. It is not music.
Worf, it's better than music. It's jazz.
Hello, and welcome to Jazz Club, bringing you all that's best in the world of jazz. Nice.
Jazz.
Oh, jazzins.
Yeah, I'm with Worf on that one.
Yeah.
Then they come upon Data and Troy's prone body and manage to overpower him. The android explains he was having another waking dream where he saw a mouth on Troy's shoulder, which he needed to destroy. Picard confines him to his quarters.
Oh, sensible.
Mm-hmm. Yet again, Data, the massive danger. Troy comes round in sickbay, exposing a nice bit of side boob here.
Rather a lot, really.
Tasty. Crusher discovers a strange rash around the Councillor's wound, which has an interphasic signature, whatever the hell that is. Sweetly, Data asks Worf to take care of Spot, so the cat comes to no harm.
May I ask a personal favor?
Yes.
Will you take care of Spot for me?
Your animal.
I'm afraid if I have another waking dream, I might injure him.
Of course. Spot, come here.
Unlike a canine, Spot does not respond to verbal commands. Goodbye, Spot. He will need to be fed once a day. He prefers feline supplement number 25.
I understand.
And he will require water. And you must provide him with a sandbox. And you must talk to him. Tell him he is a pretty cat. And a good cat.
I will feed him.
Perhaps that will be enough.
I will feed him.
Yes, it's a classic scene.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Spotsby is referred to here as being a he.
Him.
We'll
Yeah.
later on we'll find out that he's become a she. And Worf demonstrates how not to hold a cat.
Yep.
Squished up. And as he goes out, the sneeze is a nice touch.
Yes.
So far, for me, the best bits of season 7 have been all the Worf data scenes, which have been very amusing. Troy's in serious trouble. Crusher shines an interfacic scanner on her wound to reveal yuckiness. It's like an insecty thing. It's also on Crusher's sleeve, and all the medical staff, Riker's face, and Picard's neck have all got these things on them, apparently. They're like leeches for cellular peptides, and if not removed, their victims will lose all cellular cohesion. Apparently, cellular peptides are an actual thing. I wikied it, and yes, they're a medical thing. These insect creatures barely exist in our dimension, making them hard to remove. Picard makes the link with the images from Data's nightmare. They link him to the holodeck to manifest his dreams so that Picard and Geordi can observe things.
And Data says it sounds similar to directed dreaming, and I'm thinking, no shit, Sherlock. Eyes in the dark, one moon circles. But you can see parallels here.
There are,
can't you?
yes, it's true, but it's different enough. It's not as annoying as that episode.
No,
was,
it's
for
true.
heaven's sake.
Still fairly annoying though.
Data offers them Troy cake, which is now missing its right shoulder, which of course ties into him stabbing her. Geordi answers the android phone, and apparently the caller wants to speak to Picard. It's Dr. Blooming Freud again, who again tells them,
Wipe them out. All of them.
The surroundings change to Freud's office, with Data on the couch. The miners enter and shoot the doctor. Hooray! Then work on the new plasma conduit they installed with the warp core. They tell Picard and Geordi to leave them alone and that they're enemies. Data shrieks again, knocking the miners out. As he wakes, the android tells Geordi to alter his positronic processor to emit an interphasic pulse which will kill the organisms that were represented by the miners. Sure enough, the pulse kills the organisms which had been imported with their brand new core, the conduit for which was constructed with a new interphasic process, attracting the creatures. Yes.
Rather similar to the quantum filament with the creatures and the Romulans.
Yes, with the Romulan warp core, yes.
So they found new life and a new civilization and they kill it. Isn't that kind of a bit against what Starfleet's supposed to be about? Where's the attempt to communicate?
Well, yes, I think they're in sort of parasitic insects, so there's not much
How
choice
do
about
they know they're not sentient? Have they tried to communicate with them?
Well, one would have thought Crusher would have tried, yes, but I mean, she makes it quite clear that they're eating them, basically, so...
Yeah, but just because they're eating them doesn't mean they're not sentient. They might not understand or realise what they're doing.
Hello, would you stop eating me, please? No, come on. Be sensible.
Well, the quantum filament stuff, they didn't mean to kill, did they? They just needed to be taken somewhere else.
No, but they weren't eating people. In that case, they were just attracted by the particular bit of engineering. That's rather different.
Yeah, but I just think this doesn't quite fit with what Starfleet and the Federation is supposed to be about. If they had attempted to communicate and that had failed and then they'd done this, maybe fair enough, but there's not even an attempt to communicate and that doesn't fit with Starfleet.
Picard is not disappointed to hear that constructing a new conduit will take 6 hours, meaning he'll miss the Admiral's banquet. Ah. And then we have Data playing with Spot, which is really cute.
Yeah, it is, actually.
Troy brings him a data cake.
Yeah, it looks shit.
Oh. So it's a pretty damn surreal episode, I think it's fair to say. It kind of kept my interest anyway, even the second time watching it. It was a bit of a threat from Data prowling the corridors with a knife, stabbing people. And I kind of found it quirky fun in the end.
Okay.
It's got a bit of padding. I could have done without the Dr. Freud stuff, but, you didn't like it, obviously.
No. I mean... yet another reason not to have an android on your command staff.
Yeah, it does highlight that for some reason Data is a particularly dangerous person to have around.
I mean, fair enough, they take the right precautions in terms of, right, you're relieved of duty, and things that actually they should have done in other episodes that they didn't, but they do in this one, if you see what I mean. But even so, it's still... I think the moment Data might have a neurosis, if that was a human... you're going to relieve them of command.
Yeah, so
if Troy genuinely does believe Data might have a neurosis, that's the point at which, presumably as ship's counsellor, she has the authority similar to a ship's doctor.
Give him some leave, talk it through as you would of a human being. Yeah, something compassionate leave or something like that.
Yeah, whatever, but yeah. I mean, so that's them being idiots, really, and that makes me cross. The whole thing, I mean, I remembered it having seen it once. To be honest, I guessed it anyway the first time I watched it. It was something to do with, oh, they've got a new book, or, oh, look, shit's happening. Oh, I bet it's that then. I mean, it's not hard, is it, really?
No, it doesn't take a great deal of working out, but I do find the way it's all presented in his dreams quite interesting. I say, just because of the surrealism of it, basically. I mean, it's not a great episode. I'm not arguing it's wonderful or anything. It's not as good as Gambit, but it's probably better than anything else we've had in this season so far. It's not as bad as some of the other stuff, so...
It's meh. It belongs in the beige period as far as I'm concerned. It's not terrible. I wouldn't say it was terrible, but it belongs in the beige period.
Well, let's find out what other people thought. Let's hear from the Mark.
Phantasms or no more sleep for that robot. Pointlessly wacky for the sake of pointlessly wacky, and look at its weirdness for weirdness sake. On that level, it kind of works if you squint and tilt your head. It benefits from some bizarre and funny images, and has a tone that strikes the right balance of strange, funny and downright goofy. It does all of this while also tying everything into a fairly routine and definitely Braga-esque tech alien mystery involving interphasic parasites from another dimension that will cause the entire crew to lose cellular cohesion and disintegrate. You know, that part of the plot that makes sense compared to Data's nightmares. I, for one, could go for some Troy cake, given what happens. Worf commenting on its deliciousness is darkly funny.
Yes. He finds Troy tasty. We heard it here first.
The part with Data becoming a mad slasher, stalking Troy through the corridor and then stabbing her in the turbolift in a perfectly framed payoff shot that echoes Norman Bates in Psycho, however, take away the bizarre imagery, which is made for some fun captions and gifs, and you get a really super pedestrian mystery. Not great, but worse is yet to come this year.
Oh, yeah.
I need to save the bile.
Yes, definitely.
Oh, yeah. I can think of at least one episode. There may be more, but there's definitely one I'm thinking
this
of.
This is not going to be
terrible.
I mean, that's why I'm kind of, generous on this one, because A, it's better than some of the stuff we've already had this season, and B, it's definitely better than some of the stuff that's to come.
Yeah, but that's why I said I don't think it's terrible, but that's why I said it's beige. Because at the end of the day, particularly with Troy turning up, with the guy who stabbed her and going, oh, all right, no hard feelings, have a cake. I mean, it's proper press the reset button, even though DS9 is established by this point and in Season 2, and really there should be some consequences for Data and Troy's relationship, given that he fucking stabbed her. Silence from your end.
Well, it's, clearly he was not in his right mind. I mean,
Yeah, but when is their next thing going to take over this fucking android?
Yes, I know.
And it's just... There should be consequences. Actually, like we said with the other episode with Quart, there should be consequences. And this one with Data, there should be consequences.
Righty, let's find out what Wayne made of this one.
Hello, Orgs. Wayne here to talk about this week's Next Generation episode, Phantasms. I actually quite like this one. It's played for laughs more than I remember, which was quite nice. I mean, the only thing I really remember from watching it years ago is the Troy cake, which is, particularly striking imagery, for good or ill. Directed by Patrick Stewart, I noticed in the opening credits as well, which was nice to see. And there was something about this episode, and I don't know if it's me, there was something about the lighting in this episode. The whole thing felt much less beige than it normally does. Particularly the early scenes in the engineering just felt darker and had a lot more colour to them than I've noticed before. As I say, I don't know if it might just be me. Whether that was Patrick Stewart's doing or not, I'm not sure, but I like the way this episode looked. I have a few questions about the episode though, plus one particular bugbear. Let's start with that. The starbase, there's a lovely shot at the start of the Enterprise flying away from a starbase, which is, we have to assume, something like 3 or 4 times bigger than the starbase from the early movies, and yet looks exactly the same. And this is something that really annoys me, and has happened several times in Star Trek. And the worst offender is the Klingon bird of prey. Now, no one can decide exactly what size the bird of prey should be, but it seems to vary from the size of a large bus to the size of a small moon. And yet, it always looks absolutely identical. And here we have a similar sort of thing. It's not quite as offensive, but it does annoy me. Now, I realise the reasoning behind it is simply budget. They need a spaceship. They haven't got the money for a new one, so they use an old one. They throw in a line like, "Oh, it's a covert class," and we're left to assume that it's just a bigger version of a bird of prey that looks exactly the same. Anyway, there are no birds of prey in this episode, so I'm wittering. I did wonder, why has Data got a phaser in his quarters? Surely any sidearms, any kind of weapons at all, should be locked away in the quartermaster's store or in the armory. That seemed a bit odd. I was a bit surprised initially when he went off to talk to Sigmund Freud on the holodeck, and I wondered why he didn't just talk to Troy. I think that was explained a bit later on, but it did make me wonder, is Troy the only counselor on board? I mean, there's something like 600 crew on the Enterprise, and her job surely can't be to counsel all of them, even assuming that only a small percentage of them would actually ever want counselling at any one time. I still would have thought she'd have a staff of maybe 3 or 4 other counsellors that would work with her. Because my initial understanding of her role was to counsel the captain, not in a therapeutic kind of way. It was more that she was there as counsel to give him a second opinion. Which, even thinking about that, is odd. I mean, that's really Riker's job, so the fact that she's empathic certainly helps, but her empathy is not the reason she's a counselor. The counselor could easily be human or Vulcan or Tholian. I don't know. Tholian's part of the Federation? I don't think they are. Getting back to the main plot. So, Data is kind of having subliminal nightmares about these weird X-dimensional creatures that are stuck to everybody. But how? It's almost precognizant. It's almost like ESP. You know, I mean, you can have dreams and nightmares about things that you're conscious of, the things that you're aware of. But Data has absolutely no knowledge of these creatures. How is he dreaming about them? That was kind of glossed over a bit, I think, and doesn't really hold up to any kind of scrutiny. And seriously, what does Data actually have to do to get thrown off the ship? I mean, he almost killed all of them the other week when he turned evil. This week he stabs Troy in the shoulder, and the crews just seem to constantly forgive Data for these really grotesque breaches of conduct. I mean, Troy explains at the end that it wasn't his fault, he wasn't himself. But I mean, that's kind of the point. He wasn't himself, and the fact that it's so easy for him to not be himself and become murderous, I think should be quite a substantial cause for concern. The only other thing I think that made me go, was Troy's cake at the end. Did she make it herself? If so, where did she make it herself? I'm not aware there's a kitchen on board with an oven that you'd need to bake the cake in. I know we've seen Riker before cooking something in his quarters, but that seemed to be some sort of tiny little future hob. I'm not aware that he had a full-blown oven in his quarters. So maybe she replicated, in which case that replicator icing program really needs some work, because damn. Anyway, yes, I like this one. I wasn't expecting to, but I quite enjoyed it. As I say, it was played more for laughs than I remember, and plot holes aside, I just thought it was good fun and quite entertaining. So there we go. Okay then. I'm not sure which way around you're doing this, so I'll either be back later to talk about DS9's Invasive Procedures, or I'll be back to talk to you next time. Until then, bye for now.
Bye! Yes, I think we can assume the replicated cake is only as good as the programmer behind the replicator, so...
Yeah, it's still shit, though.
Clearly she's not very good at programming replicators, is what we're saying.
Yeah, no, you would expect that there's an image of Data on file, and actually... a replicated cake would look really good. So either the
Only if
replicator's balked.
No. Only as good as the programmer, isn't it?
Yeah, but if it's like replicator, make a cake that looks like Data, it's going to computer, it's going to take an image of Data and it's going to look good. Unless, like Riker making an omelette that just is scrambled eggs and is anyway totally fucked up, and whatever episode that is.
That was way back in season 2.
Right, she's made it herself and that's why it looks so fucking cruddy.
Oh.
In which case...
It's the thought that counts.
Right. Okay.
Yes, she is the only counsellor, but then again, Deep Space Nine doesn't get a counsellor until season 7, and Voyager, thanks to her dying in the pilot episode, doesn't have a counsellor at all for the most part, so...
Yeah, but given that they make a big thing about having a counsellor, it would make sense that she has staff, because, like, you know, she needs to, like, sleep and shit.
I don't know, I think the idea is that she's not needed that much. You know, they don't need counsellors that much in the future, it's just for, you know, sort of serious cases of trauma and stuff that she's called in. Well, let's face it, that's all we've seen so far, isn't it? She's kind of also human resources, isn't she? Because she's involved with Riker, so she's also got a sort of management role as well as counselling role, which is interesting. But anyway.
Which is possibly because the idea is that the people in Starfleet generally don't have neuroses, which is why they make a point about Barclay, because he's unusual in that case.
Yep.
I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, the let's not get too stuck into birds of prey, considering, as you pointed out, there aren't any in this episode. But yes, the idea is that there are different models, basically. Some are bigger than others, but they've used the same design. I mean, clearly they've used the same model, which is why, but, you know. Hey.
Yeah. Interesting your point about the lighting, and is that Patrick Stewart? It's an interesting question to ask, actually.
I wouldn't have thought that sort of thing would be down to the director. I would have thought it'd be down to whoever's in charge of lighting, but you know, maybe it's something requested. You don't know.
Could be both, yeah. And I love the idea that Data's phaser should be locked in the quartermaster's store.
My eyes are dim, I cannot see. I have not brought my specs with me. I have not brought my specs with me.
You're looking blankly.
I've never heard of it.
There was bread with bandy legs in the store.
Again, I've no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, we sang it at school.
Well, I didn't.
So was our daughter.
Again, no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, it's a song called The Quartermaster's Store. You'll just have to Google it.
I will.
Right.
Okay.
I thought it was quite famous.
It may well be, because, you know, there are huge big gaps in my knowledge, so...
Okay.
Anyway, the other things that I was going to talk about is, very good point, is how is Data dreaming about something he isn't conscious of?
Now, that's an interesting one, isn't it? It's yes, how he's he must be aware at a subconscious level, which makes no sense for him.
No, not for an android. It does for a human,
what's going on?
But not for an android. It doesn't really work if you think about it.
And it's never explained. I mean, they could have perhaps come up with some sort of weird, wacky explanation that somehow his senses were picking up stuff that it just doesn't make any sense.
But if you think about it, it would make sense perhaps for
Curse
a human.
you, Wayne! You ruined this episode.
It would make sense, I think, for a human, but not for an android. But yeah, when you're saying things that make you go things that make you things that make you go things that make you go yeah. That's what went in my head. You're aware of that song?
I am aware of that one. Oh yes.
Okay.
I was aware of music in the 90s.
Fair enough.
Okay, Drew and Tracy, what have they got to say about this one?
Hello, this is our feedback for Star Trek Next Generation Phantasms.
That was a right weird episode.
It was.
Note that it was directed by Patrick Stewart.
Yes.
Was that the first that
I
he's
don't know.
done? So we don't know if he's done many.
Don't know.
Because that was a true mindfuck episode, to be fair.
It was, yeah.
Not the kind of episode you want to watch as we are when you're jet lagged, to
No.
be fair, because I feel like something strange is going on in my brain
It was
box.
trippy enough, anyway.
Absolutely, that is a weird one. Okay, so we started off with Data's dream in the opening teaser, where
Yes.
it was reminiscent of The Wizard of Oz, where he was being the Scarecrow and he was being ripped limb by limb. You know, and you
Yes.
expected someone to go, and his left leg is over there, and his right leg is over there. You know, it was just a bit weird. But again, in this episode, Picard is very calm and patient.
Very deliberate,
when the Enterprise just, doesn't engage and doesn't move, and he has to ring up his Admiral and say, sorry mate, I'm going to be late. Can't do nothing about it. I told you I was going to be on time, but now I'm going to be late. And we expected the Admiral to go, McFly!
Yeah, he did have a bit of a go at Picard, yeah.
It just looked like the anger and the face of it. It was like something out of Back to the Future 2, wasn't it? So for me, there was too many movie cliches in this episode. How many references did we make to Nightmare on Elm Street?
It was Nightmare on Elm Street, yeah. Very.
We expected them to be walking down the hall and turn the corridor, and there'd be two girls with the jump rope going, 1, 2, Data's coming for you. It was just freaky.
We liked seeing Spot again, wasn't it?
Ah, Spot the cat. Yes. Very good, very good.
When Data was talking about he is very interesting.
Well, it's a girl, isn't it?
Well, we'll leave that for the future episode.
Oh, okay, all right then.
And when he gave
it's so funny when he gave him to Worf.
Yeah. It's good bits.
It is good bits, and it was nice because we were sitting with our little boy, cuddled up, wasn't he?
This episode, in real life, there's nothing as boring as hearing about other people's dreams. That truly is a dire conversation.
So you keep telling me.
This is an episode of let's have a look at Data's dreams.
I know, but the worst character to have dreams, who has no kind of proper emotion, is gonna dream some weird shit, isn't he?
This is about Data's dreams. It's Data oversleeping, and the Enterprise keeps stalling. It's just like
about him getting
very pedestrian, isn't it?
I don't understand what pedestrian means.
Well, just it's treading water, this episode.
Yeah, and another episode, and it's funny because he actually directed it. Picard's doing fuck all in this episode. What are you doing, mate?
Yeah, well, I guess he might. Patrick Stewart might not have much.
Yeah, but at least Riker's got a straw coming out of his bonds. That's quite funny. It was really Twin Peaky.
It was Twin Peaks.
Don't know. A weird one for me. I don't like these episodes where Picard doesn't do very much. He's the leader. He needs to be out there. He needs to be sorting stuff out.
Yeah, it's okay. Not too bad, this episode. I don't mind it. It's all right.
I thought it was very vanilla, very bland.
Yeah,
it was very bland.
So,
there was nothing to it, was there? It was a little bit like, whatever. We went off and sorted out some washing, and we still came back and hadn't lost the thread of it. So.
Yes.
It was alright.
Alright, not bad.
Not bad.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Yes, I imagine it would be right weird following a bunch of jet lag as well. Blimey. And there is a touch of the Nightmare on Elm Street to it. You're right, yeah. Maybe if there'd been a bit more of that in this episode, a bit more threat, it would have been a better episode. I can't help feeling.
1, 2 Data's coming.
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I have to say, I don't know whether it's because it's been a little while since I've watched it, but I didn't get the Wizard of Oz references.
No, I think they were on purpose, actually, that initial scene. Yeah.
No,
that's what I mean. They probably were, but I think it's been... Well, we did watch it last time with the kids, but to be fair, I didn't actually pay attention.
Oh, no, I was, because it's been a long time since I'd seen it, so I was enwrapped, and it still stands up. It's quite a fun film, that.
So did you pick them up when you're watching, then?
Yeah, well, it's only that scene, to be honest. The rest of it hasn't got anything to do with...
No, but did you pick them up in that scene?
Well, to an extent.
So I totally failed to, I'm afraid. Maybe I've had too much beer.
And it's the 4th of 5 episodes that are directed by Patrick Stewart, so... He just picked up a rather old one. It's the luck of the draw. They don't get to choose which ones they direct. They're handed to them. So, but obviously it helps if it's one that they're not hugely involved with. So
what's Picard doing is directing?
Yes, basically is the answer to that question. Okay, thanks guys. Let's find out what Purry made of this one.
Hello again, Purry here to talk about Phantasms. Yes, I did have to look at the DVD box for the episode title. I remember enjoying this one, but thinking of this, I actually remember having a fairly good impression of Season 7, and to be honest, I think it was related to the fact that our video shop had started stocking episodes, so I was able to see Star Trek before, like, normal people, and I started going to a sort of mini convention thing that happened monthly in Glasgow, which showed us episodes from the US, so a lot of these episodes, I've got the soft spot just because I was seeing them at conventions, I was seeing them before other people, and being able to talk and discuss them with them with friends and other interested people, so they have a bit of a warm glow about them. A rose-tinted specs, if you will. And this is the problem with rewatching a lot of this, is that you watch an episode like Phantasms, and it's actually still got some good stuff in it. It's got some weird imagery, some nice touches. The Troy cake looks iffy. It does look like Deanna Troi with her head through the top of a board and a cake in front of her. They couldn't have done any better. It's an idea that looks good on paper, but probably had a bunch of set directors and effects guys looking around going, what the hell do we do? How can we do a Troi cake? And, well, that's what we got. But things like the straw coming out of Riker's head's really well done. And, actually, no, the mouth on Geordi's neck looks really iffy. It does look like it's about to start bursting into song. And it would probably have been better if it had. So the concept of Data having nightmares, again, it should be a normal thing, but yes, his waking dreams, it turns into waking dreams, and it turns out to be part of a dodgy warp core that they bought from, I was about to say bought from the Barras, but that's a Glasgow reference you won't get, suffice to say, bought from an iffy market. I did actually like the fact that they had tried to make the warp core look a bit different. They've made the lights green, and they kind of put a panel on the front. Just, the ship's got a new warp core, and these things take time. I was almost going to joke to this in an almost TNG Season 8 thing of the whole episode plot is in fact Picard trying to avoid going to this Admiral's dinner. And I mean, it was almost a subplot, but not really there, but it was really just Picard talking to an Admiral saying, you're not going to be late for dinner, and him going, oh, I'm very sorry, but my warp drive isn't working, and I feel that's a little bit more important to have the flagship of the Federation functional rather than attending a top brass dinner. That's what I thought Picard should have said, but obviously military etiquette. So yeah, the episode, it kind of goes along quite well. I think the problem I've got with it is so much of it's obvious. Not as in the plot twist necessarily. It's more, for example, when Troy is suddenly walking through a mysteriously deserted corridor in the ship, and we're getting spooky camera angles, the point of view thing, the Evil Dead kind of shaky cam along the floor, and yes, Data decides to stop the turbo lift in the most terrifying way possible by sticking his arm through it. He might as well just punched his way through the door and gone in, and Troy through the whole thing is carrying the idiot ball of, oh, I'm nervous, oh, Data, you scared me. You're punching your way through the door like that. Oh, God, I thought it was something terrifying. Are you stabbing me to death? You're stabbing me to death. Saying that scene where Data started stabbing was actually quite sinister. It did have, sort of that blank killing machine look to it, which was quite decent. But like I say, it's again, I think we're getting back into average. It's got a fairly, it's not necessarily a good concept, but it was an iffy concept, fairly well executed. I think a lot of the execution was well, aside from the Troy cake, which wasn't, and the icing made it look manky. Actually, the whole cake looked manky, unless it was maybe a lemon drizzle or something. I could have probably gone for that. But surely, and I think you guys will agree with me here, a Troy cake, a cake made of Troy, would have been chocolate. I think they just missed a trick there, or was just only a vanilla cake ready. So I suppose the other part was Data saying, I'm having problems with dreams and potential psychological problems in an android, and Picard saying, yeah, and shit, you just stabbed the counsellor the one time we had a bloody use for her. But yeah, overall, it's not offensive, it's not bad, but this isn't really top. And you do feel, I think, in episodes like this in particular, that we're beginning to get to the point where there's plots that maybe would have been knocked back as not good enough are now beginning to get a go. They are kind of at the bottom of the ideas barrel, like, no, let's get that Data's nightmare plot up again. We might be able to do something with that. And I do feel that, yes, the A squads aren't working on the thing anymore, and you'll get some good ones, some ideas that maybe shouldn't have been rejected, and we're going to get some ideas that probably should have been best left on the writer's room floor. So anyway, all it remains for me to say is do keep up the good work, and I'm enjoying the podcast, and it's being done very well, and I will talk to you about the next 2 episodes. Until then, bye for now.
Bye, thank you, sir. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not great, and it's a bit season 8-ish.
Yeah, it is. I totally agree. It should be a chocolate cake for Troy.
Yeah, that would make more sense, wouldn't it? But it's not appalling. It's entertaining enough, but it's nothing to write home about, I think it's fair to say.
I think he's right. Well, I think he said a poor idea. I think maybe a beige idea, but well executed.
Yeah.
And that's what saves it, really, from being bad. Because I wouldn't describe this episode as bad. I think it's the execution that saves it. But actually, I think he's right that it's an idea that in previous seasons would have been rejected.
Yep.
But they've run out of ideas.
They probably are at this moment. Which it brings us on to
oh dear,
the next bOrgCast, which will be recording on Wednesday the 15th of April. And we'll be covering the Next Generation episode Dark Page.
Oh, now isn't that actually quite interesting and has Luxwana Troy in it?
It does have Luxwana Troy in it. I can't remember whether it was interesting or not, I must admit, but there we are, we shall find out.
I cannot think of a way to describe my reaction to it without fucking massive spoilers, so I'm just going to go,
don't then.
I think, from my memory, that it is interesting.
I certainly remember it's one of the more serious Luaxana. This isn't the comedy Luaxana one.
No, it's not.
Which is a good thing. But I can't remember if it was actually any good or not. I can just remember it was more serious than we normally associate her being. And as I say, her serious ones tend to be good. So we got that one. And we got what I do remember being a very, very good Deep Space Nine episode again, which is Cardassians.
Oh, now that sounds good, but I don't know.
It has the return of Garak.
Oh, awesome.
About bloody time.
Yes.
Somebody who features an awful lot later on, but
doesn't actually.
Once in season 1. It's bizarre.
I seem to remember that he doesn't really feature regularly until about season 3 or 4.
We shall find out. But anyway, he's back for Cardassians.
Good. Garak is awesome.
I also
Has
remember
he got a gold Ducat in it?
I have a feeling it might.
Yay!
It also is. I seem to remember another strong Kira episode as well.
Cool.
So we definitely have that to look forward to.
That sounds good. But I seem to remember that I thought that Dark Page, which I think I remember quite well, but I think that I found Dark Page interesting. So I'm not saying it's, dramatic or whatever, but I think it was interesting. That's my recollection anyway.
Well, we'll find out. All the details, if you want to send us some feedback, are on the end of the podcast.
And do let us know if you want him to shut the fuck up about
what, actors appearing in other roles. Yes, if you're fed up with that, or if you find it interesting.
If you find it, either way, let us know, because if you find it interesting, then he needs to come up with a jingle and a name.
Yes.
Or you do.
You decide. The risk of turning into Big Brother. Let's move on.
Yes.
So, thank you to everybody who fed back for this episode.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you next time. Cheery bye.
Bye.
There's a quartermaster, everybody knows. There's a song about him, this is how it goes.
Just a little ditty doesn't mean a thing, but when the boys are marching, how they love to sing.
There was cheese, wafting on the breeze in the stores.
In the stores, there was ham, mixed up with the jam in the quartermaster's stores.
The bOrgCast is brought to you by the lovely people at geekplanetonline.com.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
To contact us, you can use the forums at geekplanetonline.com.
Visit our Tumblr site at bOrgCast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send email messages or MP3s to bOrgCast at geekplanetonline.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or bOrgCastAmmo. #bOrgCast.
Come on, boys, off it up.
Mice eating up the rice in the stores.
Yes.
In the stores.
There were rats, biggest blooming cats in the quartermaster's store.
My eyes are dim, I cannot see. I have not brought my specs with me. I have not brought my specs with me.
Now let's make a race for it, eh?
1, 2, 3, go.
Take the little train to the stores. In the stores, to the flies, feeding on the back. The quartermaster's stores. My eyes are dim, I cannot see. I have not brought my specs with me. I have not brought my specs with me.
We won. There was sense, fit for any gent in the stores.
There's a puff, but one is not enough in the quartermaster's store. Our eyes are dim, we cannot see. We have not brought our specs with me. We have not brought our specs with me. Pick that out of your eyes.
Jesus, Marge! What the fuck?